Hi, my name's Lisa. Welcome to How Tuesday. Today we're going to learn how to use the TrueCut 2 blade sharpener and the Omni blade sharpener. Join me.
Why are we talking about blade sharpeners anyway? Well, blades are expensive. So if we can extend the life of our blade, why wouldn't we do it? From personal experience, I can tell you that if you have a nick or a burr on your blade, it will not be sharpened with any blade sharpener. It just needs to be recycled. So when I have a blade that needs replacing, I keep it in this gum bottle. So what I've done is I've gone in, I've pulled out one of my old blades. So my blades go from my fabric rotary cutter to my paper rotary cutter, and when it's so dull I can't cut paper, it goes in here. So I put that dull blade in my rotary cutter and it is dull. So how do you know it's dull? Well, if I just put medium pressure, like I should be able to on a rotary cutter, it only partially cuts. And you can hear that noise. To cut through the fabric, I really have to press hard. Well, if I'm cutting out a whole quilt, I'm not going to press that hard. I know this blade needs to be sharpened. It barely cuts through 2 layers, and it should be able to cut through 6 or 8 layers. So let's try sharpening the blade. The first thing we're going to try with is the TrueSharp 2. It's an electric sharpener, and it will sharpen 28, 45, and 60 millimeter blades. So all of our usual blade sizes. Okay, there's the blade sharpener, our instructions, which are always great to have, and then some tools. A tweezer, I'm assuming, to help take the blades in and out. And then there should be a charger. Oh, there's some oil. I suppose that's for honing the sharpening stone. There's a cloth. And then the sharpener. So this plugs into a regular power outlet. So I'm going to go ahead and unpack this, plug it in, read the instructions, and then I'll come back and we will sharpen the blade and I'll let you know what the difference is. Okay, let's give it a whirl. I've read the instructions and we're just going to go for it. So the first thing I did is I took the oil out of the little bag and I put a drop of oil on each of the diamond stones, the sharpening stones. This was on top of the blades when I opened it. It just says that it's been tested. I'm going to take the little cloth out because it tells me to use it to wipe any debris, and it also tells me to use the tweezers when handling my blade. So I'm going to take this old blade off. I'll use the tweezers and put it on the sharpener. Now it says to center it, so that looks centered, and then to close the lid and hold it down but not to latch it, and then to run it for 15 seconds. Then I'm going to open the lid, flip the blade, and run it for another 15 seconds. So it says to do that cycle, test your blade. If it's not sharp enough, to go ahead and do it again. So I'm going to sharpen 15 seconds on each side, then we'll put the blade back in and test it and see if I need to sharpen it some more. All right, I've done 15 seconds on each side. There is a really cool gadget on here. It's a little lever that will lift up the blade so you don't ever have to get your fingers close to it. So I'm going to grab the blade and put it back on my rotary cutter. This is where the quick change is really nice. Let's cut and see what happens. It suggests that you'll probably have to do it more than once, but let's try it with once and see what happens. I would say there might be a small difference, but I still have to press pretty hard. So let's run it again. This time, I'll let you hear what it sounds like when it's sharpening. So again, put it in the sharpener, I put oil on each blade to start with. We're going to close the lid and just hold it finger tight, like not latch it, and then run it for 15 seconds. All right, push this little lever, it lifts the blade. We'll flip it over and do 15 more seconds on the other side, always making sure that that blade is centered. So I'm going to sharpen it, put it on my rotary cutter, and then I'll be back and we'll try it out again. All right, I did another 15 seconds, tried the blade, didn't feel like it was sharp enough. So I did 15 more seconds on each side, so 3 sets on each side. And this last time I got quite a bit of debris on my Kleenex when I wiped the blade. So there are some filings coming off. So let's try it after, that would be 45 seconds in 3 tries for the blade. That definitely made a difference. I don't know if you can tell, but you listen. That's a nice clean cut. So I would say that that blade is maybe 30% sharper than it was before I sharpened it. It does say in the instructions that you might have to do it 2 to 5 times to sharpen the blade. So I think that worked pretty good. Let's try a 60mm blade and see if that makes a difference. All right, I pulled out my paper 60mm blade cutter, and it is quite dull. Possibly even has a nick in it. There's a little thread that didn't cut. I can feel that little nick. So let's try this blade in the sharpener. Won't be as fast as the other one because it's not a quick change. All right, so the blade is in. I've oiled it. So let's do 15 seconds each side. I'll put it back in and then we'll come back and see how this one works. All right, I gave my 60mm blade, which I can see a nick in, 2 sets of 15 on each side to see if it helps. Again, I can definitely feel a change. It's not back to its original sharpness, but I would say this one is at least 25% sharper than it was, but it does have a nick in it. So it told me it wouldn't work to take the nick out, although it's not leaving a thread. So I would say this True Sharp 2 blade sharpener is a pretty good investment. It does all 3 sides. If you do lots of cutting, this will extend the life of your blades. It's definitely doing something because my cleaning cloth is quite dirty. And when I wipe out the inside, I'm getting lots of metal filings off of the sharpening stone. I've got one more sharpener to try. Let me pull out that packaging and we'll see how it works. Okay, I'm back with our second blade sharpener. This is the Omni Grid dual rotary blade sharpener. It only does 45mm blades, which is for most people the most common size that we use. And I've read through the instructions. It is hand driven, not electric. It has a coarse grinding wheel and a fine one. So you need to do the coarse one and then the fine one. This is the handle for holding your blade. And I thought I'd get quite cheeky and use the blade that we've already sharpened in the True Cut 2 and see if we can get it sharper. If it doesn't sharpen any further, I'll grab another old blade and try it. But I thought, why not do an experiment while we're doing it? The other thing it says is that the grinding wheel needs to be slightly moistened. So I've got my water bottle here and it says just to put water on your finger, rub it around the honing stone and do that. So the blade goes on one side of the handle, center it, and then screw the other side of the handle on. Be really careful. You know those blades are super sharp. Now I'm going to put it through the hole onto the coarse sharpening blade. And then what it wants me to do is to do 10 to 20 complete rotations using some pressure. So when I turn it, that's only half of a rotation. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5. It says the purpose of the water is to keep any filings that you're removing from sticking into the blade. So it helps them to move around. There's lots of filings coming off on this sharpening stone that I can see. All right, I'm giving it some pretty good pressure, but not too hard. Now, we've only done one side of the blade, so I'm going to flip it over. Yeah, there's lots of goo on there. And do the other side. Again, 20 complete turns would be 40 of these half turns of the blade. There's quite a bit of debris on this sharpening stone, which kind of surprises me. All right, we're going to call that done. It's quite dirty. I'll just wipe that off. Now we need to repeat the process with the fine one. So we've taken out any big problems, and it actually says that it will remove burrs, which is something sticking out of the blade, but it would not, again, fix a nick, something that you've hit a pin or your ruler or something like that. If you do that, your blade is finished. That's when I move it to my paper cutter, and it seems to work okay there. All right, that's one side. Now let's do the other side. Although this is a little bit more labor intensive than using the TrueCut that is electric, I feel like I have more control over the sharpening. At least I can see what's happening. I can press hard, or I don't have to press hard. And it did say to only go one direction, not to screw back and forth, but just to go one direction so that you're honing that blade. All right, let's call that 40. And that blade, that stone was dirty too, but not quite as dirty as the last one. So we'll take the blade off, and a little piece of fuzz there. Put it back on the rotary cutter. And see how that worked. Again, I am using the one we already sharpened, so if it's not any sharper than it was, I'll take an old blade and see. Let's see how it does. That's not bad. It's definitely sharper than it was. Just for fun, I'm going to grab a completely dull blade. I'm going to sharpen it, and then I'll come back and show you how it cuts. Okay, I pulled out a dull blade. Here's the before. You can hear it and see how hard I have to push to get through 2 layers. Now I'm going to sharpen it and come back. Okay, I'm back. I've sharpened it again. Let's see what the results are. Let's try 4 layers. It definitely is improved. It is not as sharp. Oh yeah, that cuts through 4 layers, no problem. It's definitely not as sharp as a new blade, but it tells you right in the instructions and the information that it will not give you the sharpness of a new blade. The only thing I would add to this is I would find a jar or a cup that this fit on so that I could sharpen and it would be sitting on something. It's a little bit cumbersome to hold it in your hands. But I really like this sharpener. I feel like the Omni Grid one did just as good a job as the TrueCut one. The only downside is it only does 45mm blades. So we couldn't use this at the store because we use all 60mm blades. We'd have to go to the TrueCut too. So I think they're a good value. I think they do what they say they're going to do. They will rehone and extend the life of your blade. Will it take it back to brand new blade? No, but if it gives you 25 or 50% longer cutting for your blades, it's worth the investment.
Thanks for joining me for How Tuesday. I hope you enjoyed learning how the TrueCut 2 blade sharpener works, as well as the Omni Grid blade sharpener. The TrueCut is good for 28 millimeter, 45 millimeter, and 60 millimeter blades. So it's more versatile if you have several cutters. The Omni Grid sharpener, I felt maybe worked a little bit better, but it only works for 45 millimeter blades. And a reminder, it won't take a nick or a burr off of your blade, and it will only resharpen, rehone your blade. It won't take it back to its beautiful sharp edge that you got when you bought your blade. It's about a 25 to 35% improvement. Thanks for joining me today.